Bacta contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue.
We would be honored if you would join us.
How are you feeling? Your latest workups on your condition indicate that all damage has been reversed. Recovery is total. I believe you have been quite fortunate. No further thanks are necessary, Commander, but you are most welcome. It is my function and pleasure as a medical droid to help and heal human beings.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello, welcome everyone to Star Wars from the Bacta Tank, the Mandalorian edition, David.
All right, let's get off to the races.
The Mandalorian edition. Put your hands together. Aren't we all just so excited? Our first live-action Star Wars TV show is finally here. We have been waiting for this, I want to say, for like 15 years.
Yeah,
because
it's something that's been highly anticipated.
Well, years ago, Lucas was trying to pitch an idea to HBO. I want to say before he actually sold his baby to slavers, his words, not mine. Before he sold his baby to slavers, he was trying to pitch a live action to HBO, and they snubbed him.
Yeah, not only that, I know that along with that, Kevin Smith was actually supposedly in talks with him and was going to be like an entire series produced by those two.
Well, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. I don't think Kevin Smith is capable of putting together. I mean, he's an awesome filmmaker in his own right, but Star Wars?
Oh, yeah, because he was a huge fan.
Just because you're a huge Star Wars fan doesn't mean you can make a good Star Wars TV show.
This is true.
Although I'm willing to give him a shot, bring him in to direct an episode of The Mandalorian during season 2. Let's see what he's got.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'd be open for that. So, yes, this is the Mandalorian edition of Star Wars from the Bacta Tank. We will be here for all 8 episodes of the first season, a show created by the big-time swinging dick filmmaker Jon Favreau. He ain't playing. He ain't playing around. This guy came up with this idea and wrote the script during Christmas. Rather than spending time with his family, he was writing The Mandalorian. As we learned during the most recent Star Wars celebration. So we're going to do this discussion a little different than our normal Bacta Tank shows that listeners may be used to, Dave.
Yes.
And typically we just go right into things. We start talking about spoilers, but this is also going to be a Critique Revolve combo show. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be interested in finding out what's the word when it comes to The Mandalorian. So because of that, we're going to flip the template around just a bit, and we're going to be doing this more like a standard film template type review. We will do the first half spoiler-free, and then we will go to a break and then get into the, not just the spoiler territory, but also what we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the Star Wars side of things. Like, we're going to get really nerdy and talk about all the exciting aspects to this episode of TV, because I will say right out the gate that this episode did in fact, say what you want, there's some naysayers out there already, and this episode has already pushed the mythos of Star Wars farther than I would say 90% of the movies we've received in this new era.
No,
would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I do agree that basically this, just by itself, the first episode made the universe much more larger than anything we've seen in the past two movies. We can't say we can't say about the third movie yet because Rise of Skywalker hasn't come out
Well,
yet.
I'd even say Rogue One. Throw Rogue One in there. Solo is probably the only movie I think up to this point that has really, really pushed the world of Star Wars.
Yeah, I would say that basically this is in line with probably Solo.
And we're talking about live action films. We're not talking about the amazing Star Wars Rebels that just kicked open that door. Thanks to our God, Lord and Savior Dave Filoni.
But we can't include unfortunately you have to separate the animation side of everything because let's face it, the animation side of Star Wars, mainstream audiences haven't embraced it as much as the live action.
There was a study done, I want to say a few years back, and it was something like less than 5% of Star Wars fans really get into the expanded universe, whether it be the animation, the comic books, and the books. So when you have something like this, The Mandalorian, this is going to be something that's going to appeal to what I call casual Star Wars fans. If you're not reading the comic books and the books and watching the cartoons, I mean, this isn't an insult at all. I'm not trying to be an elitist Star Wars fan by any means, but you're a casual Star Wars fan. You love the movies. You like the movies. But I have a feeling that The Mandalorian is going to satiate some of that. Yes, it's going to satisfy many people who want more, but I also think it's going to turn into a bigger feeding frenzy. I think there's people who've been on the fence of being a casual, and they're going to be like, all right, what else is fucking in this little Disney Plus? And they're going to be, oh, what's this? Clone Wars. I've heard about that. So this may be a gateway drug for people that might not have given the expanded universe
a shot. Yeah, and I think that's why I agree with you that we have to take a look at this series and really critically break it down because there's so much writing behind it. It would be a disservice to actually just fanboy all over it because honestly the series is aiming to look really good. We're all anticipating that it's going to do very well. However, we have to seriously take a look at it and say, is this series going to help carry Star Wars on?
And that's a very important question you pose, Dave, because if this was back in 2013 when the skies were bright, the birds were chirping, then we'd be in a very different territory. We're in a territory now where it's very dark for Star Wars, unfortunately.
It is.
And not because I'm not a negative Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. But there's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And there is a lot writing on The Mandalorian.
And I hate to say it, you got to look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Star Wars is at a low point right now.
Well, box office wise, no. It's making a lot of money. But if they keep doing what they're doing, there could be potential issues based on various studies done by Wall Street themselves.
Yeah.
The financial geniuses themselves have put together these snapshots. So there are a lot of expectations, Dave. A lot of people have their own ideas of what Star Wars should be or shouldn't be. So it is our duty today to walk that line, Dave. As you were getting into that, we will review and discuss this solely from a critical standpoint for the opening half.
Yes.
Because we have, as a network, we're critics. You and I also do a Star Wars fan show, the Bacta Tank, where we just oogle and jizz all over the place for Star Wars. But we also have to maintain a little bit of critical credibility when it comes to something like this. So we're going to really focus on the critical aspects first. Analytically, what worked and what didn't, or did all of it work? And we're going to focus on script, directing, acting, cinematography, visual effects. And on that note, Dave, give me your initial thoughts in a nutshell.
My initial thoughts of The Mandalorian was, did I have fun watching this? Absolutely. I had a lot of fun as a Star Wars fan watching it. It's a really great entrance point into Star Wars for this series, but
I like
it's
what you
not
said.
Perfect.
I like what you said, though. It's a good entry point.
It's a good entry point.
Because I agree. I think people that maybe haven't watched all the new movies, but they've watched the original trilogy, maybe the prequels at some point, they can get into this and be like, oh, okay, I can actually sit back and watch this and not have to know everything.
Exactly. And that's why I say is as an entry point, it's fantastic. It got the job done. Is it perfect? By far, by any means, no. It's not perfect.
It's a beginning.
It's a beginning.
Yeah.
And we also, I think my expectations initially for this entire series is going to be kind of, I'm going to pull back a little bit. Because I had very high expectations for the series, but now seeing how everything's formatted, and when you take a look at like what the working pieces are with the directing and the acting and everything else, I'm going to temper my expectations now. Because at first I was like going, this is going to change the world.
This is going to be world shattering.
This is world shattering. This is a game changer.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure.
And that's a
on.
lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, at the initial go, is this episode a game changer? Not really. It's still a pilot episode. And it feels like a first episode of just a series.
Yeah,
It didn't leave me game-changing feeling.
Yeah, and ultimately that route they took, we won't know the outcome
Yeah.
and what it will do to the future of this show until way later. Because you're right, I agree with you. It isn't game-changing. It isn't groundbreaking. I think a lot of it is expected to just have this giant orgasm together, and the ground would split, and Star Wars fans would cheer around the globe.
Yes.
And that's unfair. I think us as Star Wars fans, and I'm saying you and I, Dave, I think we were part of that. We're like, this is going to be epic. It's going to change the world. And it was an episode of television. It needs some work. Although I think therein lies some mistakes, because you're also dealing with the very first episode of the first live-action Star Wars show on a brand new streaming service.
Yes.
And in my opinion, this should have been earth-shattering. And I'm not talking from a Star Wars standpoint. I think there should have been some of those issues worked out within the script. It felt a little clunky at moments. So let's get into that. That's our initial thoughts. Title of the episode, very simply titled Chapter 1, written by Jon Favreau and directed by the great Dave Filoni. The synopsis: a Mandalorian bounty hunter tracks a target for a well-paying client. All right, so what did they do right here? Quite a bit. You
Yes.
are pulled into the world immediately. That's number one. Excellent work developing the atmosphere and tone of the world of the Mandalorian. The teaser was about 3 minutes, roughly, which bleeds right into the first act.
Yes.
It started with the Mandalorian collecting a bounty. Smart, because we know who he is and what he's capable of, all within the opening 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 to 5 minutes, which is really impressive when you think about it, because normally it would take maybe, I would say 10 to 20 minutes to set up your character.
Well, if
they
it's
were
a-
able to do that in a simple 3 to 5 minutes.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about teasers. And I'm glad that even though Favreau isn't a television writer, which there is a big difference, and that's going to play a part in our discussion a little bit later. It's very different writing for television opposed to feature films.
Yeah.
And something that you have to do in a TV show opposed to a movie, and I guess you can compare them a bit. They do two different things, but they can be analyzed in under the same lens. In a TV show, you have a teaser that a lot of more recent TV shows have kind of gotten rid of because of not needing commercials. Typically in the old days, you'd have a 2-minute introduction that would grab everybody, and then we go to commercial break, the title sequence, and then we're back after commercial break.
Yeah, there was no title sequence. I was really surprised about that.
So the streaming service with the streaming service age and the era of the streaming service, we've kind of gotten away from those teasers. However, this was written with a teaser, which then did go to a title sequence, Dave, which is very simple. It was just The Mandalorian, and it kind of moved towards us.
What I was surprised with, and it's not the atypical Star Wars opener. You know what I mean? Like, I was expecting.
What do you mean? Because all of even our live action, our cartoons have been very simple title sequences, haven't they?
Just
me if I'm wrong.
Just recently,
Okay.
they've gone that route because
Right.
remember they did that in Solo, and
No. I'm talking about our cartoons.
and in the cartoons
we have just a title.
They've done it sparingly, but
Yeah.
I was really surprised for the Mandalorian.
You wanted an
we did-
HBO like Netflix /
yeah.
Hulu / Amazon introduction. You wanted the whole, cue pretentious title sequence.
Yeah, as funny as it sounds,
Right?
I
Yeah.
was expecting something, like
I
give
did
me the
too.
theme song of
yeah.
like the series.
I did too, and I'm wondering why they didn't do that. I thought that would have been really fucking cool to do this awesome title sequence. So I do feel like they kind of missed the boat there. However, this is their own thing, and if they wanted to give it more of a cinematic flair opposed to a television flair, then ultimately that decision to keep it short and sweet worked for this show, especially if you wanted to grab people and then immediately pull them in. And also that may change with the second episode.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times with the first episode, the template changes from teaser to first act. So you may see that change. You may see something go, you may see the teaser and then we go into that title sequence.
Into the title sequence.
But we'll see what happens with the second episode. So they did a great job creating the atmosphere very quickly, showing us what type of world we're in, a little bit of a lawless world, not a lot of authority necessarily. We get the idea that the galaxy has fallen in hard times. This is post Return of the Jedi. That's something that we need to remember, which they alluded to a couple times. They said the Empire's not what they were, I believe was the wording. When the bounty hunter was offered Imperial credits.
Yeah, I thought that was actually a smart bit of dialogue too. Was that you didn't have to go like in your face and give us a long-winded explanation.
Yeah. Well, that would have been awful too.
It would have been
talk
awful.
about exposition.
Yeah, exposition. That's the word I'm looking for. You were looking for like an exposition dump, but
Yeah.
instead you just use one bit of dialogue and it just worked.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of how this opened up. I feel like the introduction, the teaser, the first act, even the second act was really good. They managed to get everything into place and help us understand the world, which is the most important part of your first episode of this brand new TV show that we don't really know what to expect. They have to pull us in. They have to explain things, especially remembering that there's going to be a lot of casual Star Wars fans coming in, people who aren't used to this world. They don't know about the Mandalorian. They don't know about, most people don't even know what a Mandalorian is. And when I say most people, I'm talking about most Star Wars fans that call themselves fans, because they are, but they're casual fans. The ones that have watched every movie, who wait in line, 7 hours. Those are fans too.
Yes.
They're just not nutcases like us, the ones who read the comic books, the books, watch all the cartoons. And keeping that in mind, this is all fucking new to them. They have never seen a Mandalorian. Which Boba Fett isn't a Mandalorian. Jango Fett is not a Mandalorian. This is all new. The culture of the Mandalorian is something they're going to have to get into as well.
Yes, for mainstream audiences. That's why I think the first part, I thought it was a brilliant ploy, or a brilliant place to put it, was Carl Weathers. Using Carl Weathers in that first part, I think was solely to make the mainstream audience comfortable. Say, hey, this is a familiar face that you're used to. You've seen Carl Weathers in other things that you may have liked. Hey, you like Carl Weathers, right? Everyone likes Carl Weathers. So the use of him in the first...
The human element.
Which
is what we needed.
I think was a very smart move on Filoni's, or not Filoni, but Favreau's part, because you have to engage. I think he understands you have to engage your mass audience, not just your hardcore fans. Because you're right, as hardcore fans, hey, we know what Mandalorians are. We see the armor. We're going to be hooked onto that. But what about the audience that you want to bring in? You have to bring in new audience. You have to bring in that mass audience.
You can't write this for the elite Star
You
Wars
can't
fans because
write it
we're
for the
gonna, we're
elite.
going to be here already.
And that's why I thought that the way that they introduced Carl Weathers, like what you said, that human element.
Well, it wasn't just the human element. It was absolutely, we needed it because up to this point we saw nothing really but
Nothing but
aliens and a
aliens.
guy in a helmet, which all of that works. But for us to really connect, we're going to need a little bit more at some point. And I know we talked about that briefly on a preview show. Are they going to be able to keep this guy in a helmet, and are we going to be able to connect with him? And we agreed that they could.
Yes.
They absolutely could.
They could.
Star Wars is filled with characters where you can't really see their facial expressions, and yet they managed to really convey a sense of humor at times, emotion. So I don't think that's the problem, but we still need to introduce that human element so we have more of an intimate scenes, a connection. Otherwise, it just feels like we're watching something cheap. So bringing in Carl Weathers into the episode very quickly, I thought was a smart move. That was one of my favorite moments, not only because it brought that human element, but also they found clever ways to quickly, within 40 seconds, explain to us that everyone's kind of on hard times. Empire credits are not worth nearly what they should be. And the fact that a bounty hunter is willing to take half credit because Empire credits are worthless. So he's willing to take half payment over Imperial credits says a lot.
Yeah.
That was a smart decision from the writing standpoint because we instantly understand that the world is crumbling. That is not what it was.
That is not what it was. And especially like in their, I don't know, it was also their use of colors throughout every scene. Everything just seems so, I hope I use the term right, but it seems so saturated. It seems so, like kind of dirty, dusty to a degree. Like everything is downtrodden. I mean, even when he's outside walking,
There's no
among the
happiness.
marketplace, there is no happiness. There's no bright colors.
Yeah.
And
Well, then it's not saturated. It's desaturated.
it's
then.
desaturated. Thank
Yeah.
you. And then like the use of that throughout the first 5 to 10 minutes, made you understand what the setting was. It's, yes, this is Star Wars because they have all these cool elements like the droids and the aliens and as you put it, the guy in the armor. But they set the tone in the setting that says this is a bleak time.
Yeah,
This
I
is
agree.
a time when there's a lot of bad things going on. There's like a power vacuum.
Yeah,
going on.
the aesthetics were good. Everything they needed to set up that motif worked. And the way it was set up, ultimately, that's what we're talking about here. Anyone coming in, and that's our point here, anyone coming in wanting to get into Star Wars because the previews look snazzy and sleek, I think they could enjoy this. They're not going to feel left out because there may be 3 or 4 movies and a few cartoon series that they haven't watched. They can get in. This is a ground level show.
Yes.
And it looks like they're going to slowly introduce new ideas to us, which is a smart decision. I think they realize they're not dumb. Disney isn't stupid. Favreau and Filoni aren't idiots. They understand that the majority of the people going to be watching this, the live action, they probably didn't watch Clone Wars or Rebels, or read comic books. And you can't write a show based on assuming that everyone already knows this ever-evolving story.
I think it's something that everyone in the industry has learned, especially watching like a series like Game of Thrones, where Game of Thrones was popular because, yes, it had that set fan base because of the books. But then the series realized that you can't base off a series just because of previous fan base like that love books. They have to do something different. They have to do things that are different from the books. And they had to establish that, and that's why later series of Game of Thrones are considered better than the actual opening seasons.
Exactly. I agree. So I guess ultimately what we're saying is that the world building was pretty good.
The world building was really good. I mean, they didn't wait on it.
They didn't wait at all. And they, as I said, they didn't just push the world of Star Wars forward, but they also pushed the mythos of the Mandalorian along in a way that most of the movies in this new era haven't been able to accomplish. In fact, they haven't accomplished that at all when it comes to the Mandalorians. With words like the Great Purge, foundlings, Beskar, we get the idea of the war the Empire has created, or the idea that the war that the Empire's created has caused a bunch of chaos for them. It's been a whirlwind couple of years, maybe a decade or more. So again, connecting it right back for the people who know, like you and I and other uber Star Wars nerds, we know that that's absolutely true. Goes all the way back to the Clone Wars, bleeds into Rebels. So they found nice words or phrases to world build instantly.
Yes.
Like, oh, the Great Purge. That sounds pretty cool. Beskar, which if you're a Star Wars nerd, you know what that is. And we'll get into that during our spoiler section. There's also something called foundlings. I cannot remember. Have we gotten into that before? Is that a new...
No, that's a new term.
Okay.
It just sounds
Is it like
familiar,
younglings?
like younglings.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a take on younglings.
We'll save that for the nerdy second half. Okay?
Yeah.
So this all will be very important for the development of this show and its future. It will need to extend the mythos, including developing or delving, I should say, into the Mando culture.
Oh, and that was easily one of my favorite scenes. Was that's almost like that. It was a mystic scene between the two Mandalorians, Mandalorian himself, and then the armorer. We don't even know the armorer's name. We can only just know that it was the Mandalorian armorer, and that whole dream sequence. It's so it harkens to something that me and you have always said is strong.
You're talking
in
about
Star Wars.
the flashback?
The flashback.
Yeah.
It harkens back to the mysticism of Star Wars, except we're not dealing with the Force.
Right.
Do you realize that we're not even dealing with the Force? We're dealing with a culture.
Yeah.
And that's to me,
gonna
that
be
just engaged me right away.
That's going to have to be the focus of the show, in my opinion. Like, yes, the politics and the post era of the Empire falling will definitely be an awesome backdrop, but that's the backdrop.
Yeah.
And Favreau has already said that their focus is to try to stay as distant as possible, because this show was written to be almost apart so that they wouldn't touch or step on the toes of anything else that may be going or being produced, right?
Yes.
So we know that the Empire, obviously, this whole thing is going to have to be the backdrop. But if the story is really about pushing the Mando culture forward and really delving into that, I think we have a win here.
Yes.
I really do.
I really do.
Because there's a lot of cool things. Because you're right, the romanticized idea of the relationship between a warrior and the what's it called? Boom, the person that makes the weapons.
The armorer.
Not just the armor. What's the other
the forger?
Yes, the blacksmith.
Blacksmith.
I mean, that is awesome.
Oh, when they were talking about how, like when she said, I think a pauldron calls this, or when she looked at him and says, oh, has your insignia been chosen yet?
Yes.
That made me go, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And also, Dave, let's not forget taking us deep into the bounty hunter world in a way that we've only seen some of it in cartoons briefly. We've read in comic books and played in video games, but never in a live action medium have we been able to see these types of elements. There were moments, Dave, when he's talking about Pucks and collecting these bounties. It felt like Star Wars Galaxies. Do you remember that old MMO for the early 2000s?
Yeah. And
there were parts that it immediately brought me back to the gameplay of Star Wars Galaxies.
Because that's how much the dialogue was written intelligently. Like they knew the right buzzwords to use.
Right.
For Star Wars fans. Without going over everybody's head. Like, say, for example, in a lot of sci-fi, they use sci-fi terminology and it goes over the viewers' heads, and it just basically, that's why people dub it.
Quick, go repair the antimatter fuse inductors.
Yeah.
What?
They term it like, I forgot what they term that type of sci-fi terminology when you use it in script writing. However,
douchery.
This, however, worked because they were like saying, okay, we're going to use simple buzzwords, simple words. We're not going to go over the people's head. People can associate bounty or bounty with puck. That you can connect words with their meaning very easily, and it won't go over your head. And that, in my opinion, is what's needed in Star Wars. If you want to bring in people that are mass audience, that are everyday Joes, you want to bring in stuff that they can digest. They can take in easily and say, okay, I don't have to think about this too hard. I can enjoy this because it's not about the terminology. It's about the story behind the terminology.
Yeah. All right. So all of those things worked. We can both agree on that.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the problem for me, and yes, there was a problem. The problem for me was somewhere in between all of that. The beginning was strong. The setup was strong. The world building was strong. And the final act was excellent. Yeah. The hook was classic TV at its best. TV writing 101. Grab the audience before the end credits. Great. Excellent. But there was this weird disconnect in places. And I'm not sure if it was the human element, because we had nothing but aliens and people in masks, and maybe we needed that human connection to truly be immersed, because the moments with Carl Weathers were strong.
Yes.
The moments with Werner Herzog were
strong.
The best. There were parts that felt a bit stagey as well. For example, the Western aspects. Rather than it being a Western, which is what we kept hearing, right? That this is going to be a Western.
It's going to be a Western.
And it was. It was. But rather than it being just a Western because that's what you wrote, to me it felt like they were reminding us this is a Western.
This is a Western.
With moments like the Mandalorian taming the wild blurg. Like, it felt like, okay, I get what you're doing, and it felt like a bunch of red arrows pointing at different things. Hey guys, this is a Western.
This is a Western.
This is a Western. Remember, watch him ride off.
Like you take that scene and compare it to the opening scene, which the opening scene is spaghetti Western at its finest, right?
Yeah.
It's a typical generic spaghetti Western scene. Guy gets upset because of a drink. Blames it on the hero or the protagonist, and basically says, "You owe me a beer," and a bar fight breaks out. Right, atypical Western scene.
Yeah,
and that I could digest more. But yeah, I'm with you. Like when you got to the scene where you got to tame the animal, and it's taming the horse.
Yeah.
Yes, we understand this is a Western. It's a Western Star Wars Western. But don't slap us in the face with it.
Yeah, and a good example, Dave, would be Solo, a Star Wars story. That was also a Western. The entire movie was a Western.
Yeah.
But there was none of those moments where, hey, guys, you didn't get the idea that there were red, lights and whistles and arrows pointing. Hey, guys, this is a Western.
This is a Western.
Remember? This is a
like
Western.
It's a film noir because of... everyone's face is in shadow. No, not like that.
There were moments like that, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they felt like they needed to lay it on thick at the beginning so people understand the world they're in. But I don't think any of that was necessary, and there were other moments like that as well. It was a little eye-rolling. It just felt like they were forcing it when they didn't need to, because the setting in itself is Western. The archetype of the character is Western.
Yeah.
Everything about the motif and the theme is Western. So I don't think they needed to have red arrows pointing and these weird moments that were very heavy-handed. But I will say I dug the Mandalorian's jingle a lot. His little theme song was very reminiscent of a spaghetti Western every time he would appear on screen. And I did get a little giddy. especially when he first walked through those doors in the cantina and his song did doo-doo-doo. I was
Yep.
like, oh, oh, I love you.
Yeah, but that's for when we. I think that for me those elements.
That's for our spoiler.
That's
section,
for our
right?
spoiler
when we
section.
can get nerdy too.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
like this opening episode had me have nerd chills at various points.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, I was kind of left going, okay, something's off. Like you, I felt that there was something wrong about it. And I honestly feel that one of the biggest elements that has to be addressed, is its runtime.
Yeah.
I think that 36 minutes.
That's not good.
No. I honestly feel.
You want more, Dave? Are you Anakin Skywalker? You want more?
And the funny part is, it's not about really wanting more. I think if you just.
It needed more.
It needed more because, just like what you said, if you take those scenes that seem heavy-handed and just flesh them out just a bit more, or even like more of those human scenes that really, really made this episode sparkle.
Yeah.
And, give it a couple more minutes, give it like 2-3 more minutes. I think this episode would be more digestible for a mainstream
It'd
audience.
feel a little better.
It'd feel a little better.
There was something off, and
There was something off by the end of it.
I think it came together for me in the final moments. It did. The moment between IG-11 and the Mandalorian, as soon as that moment hit, I was like, okay. I feel like they found themselves. I'm like, okay. The humor between the two of them, the fact that IG-11 wanted to blow himself up constantly. Like, there was humor there, and it was Star Wars humor, and it worked for that scene. But 36 minutes, and it's over. And this is where I have my biggest problem. My problem isn't with what we receive necessarily. It's the bit of the writing. I think it comes down to writing, because it always comes down to writing for me. And this might be the problem that we have been talking about since this TV show was announced, Dave. Jon Favreau is a
He's
great director. I would never take that away from him. He is.
Yeah, he's a fantastic
He's a
filmmaker.
great, fantastic feature film director, feature film writer. I studied him in film school. His movie Swingers is still one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, launched his career, arguably, as well as Vince Vaughn. Fantastic movie. But writing television is very different than writing movies. And
yes.
if you know what to look for, I'm hoping, because this is what it looks like so far, it feels like he just wrote a long movie opposed to writing television episodes, because within each television episode, there should be act structures that accompany an episode of television. And this felt like there were those little marks there, but ultimately it felt like it was governed by the first act of a feature film. When you think about it, this entire movie was written like the first act of a film, not a TV show. In fact, for those people that are not in the know, typically the first act of a movie ends anywhere between 27 to maybe 35 minutes.
Yes.
That's the end of the first act. That's when you know what the movie's going to be about. You don't know everything, but you know what the movie's going to be about. So-and-so is going to rescue the damsel in distress, and he's going to gallop away, and as he gallops away, the bad guys are going to pursue him. That's the movie. Now we don't know what's going to happen by the end, but we know what the setup is. And that's exactly how this episode ended.
Yeah. It ended right when the first act of your movie should end.
Right around that 30-minute mark. And that scared me a bit when I looked down at the running time. I was like, wow, that was really short. And then I'm like, oh, wow, that wasn't just short. That was the first act of a movie. And that's not how you write TV. Because if they do continue to do this, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of people rip this apart. Because even if people don't understand television writing, let's say they don't know how to do it, we all are accustomed to how we watch TV and how we watch movies. And it's going to make us feel weird and uncomfortable when we watch something that doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by feel right how it's executed, how it's developed, how the flow of the show. So I'm hoping that's just an issue in this first pilot. You know, I'm hoping that's just them trying to get through the kinks to get this story going. And then because they brought Filoni in, we know Filoni knows how to write television. So I'm hoping this was just Favreau's first effort. You know, obviously he's done rewrites. I'm not saying this is the first draft, but this is his thing. And then Filoni offered his assistance as the show progresses, because there are some massive issues when it comes to how things flow and how things feel.
And that's why for me, I'm very happy with this first episode, but I'm not, because
that doesn't make any sense, David.
I know it doesn't. That's why this is really confusing for me.
Well, Dave, I think what you're trying to say is what we're trying not to do. Is as a Star Wars fan, it's fine.
It's fine.
Well, as a Star Wars fan, we liked it because there's lots of cool Star Wars elements. But as a critic, it wasn't the best moment of television.
It wasn't the best moment of television, which it was hyped up to be.
And that could be due to your own Star Wars, maybe even critical wants, you know? So, and we'll get into that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the practical effects were some of the best in television production. This is something we've heard since the conception and the announcement of this show. Jon Favreau has said repeatedly that this is going to be filmmaking 101. You're going to see those classic Star Wars moments, the things that still define Star Wars, even in the prequels, even with the new era with Disney. What governs the effects? Practical effects. The use of miniatures, the use of real costumes opposed to just completely CGI-ing characters. Favreau recently shared that the Mandalorian will use engine technology, virtual camera work, and virtual production for virtual sets and virtual set extensions. So this is going to be a very VFX-heavy television show, and I cannot wait to see the VFX breakdowns for the first episode.
Along with like the practical effects of along with that was amazing this episode. I mean, like when he was walking through the marketplace and you see the Salacious Crumb alien like on the spit, and that's an actual puppet. And you see the other one just sitting in the cage and he's crying.
That's so sad.
And those are puppets. Those are practical effects.
They weren't real? They weren't actual alien animals?
But seeing that instead of like along with the VR, the effects in this episode were amazing.
Yeah, really good stuff. And the CGI was fantastic.
The CGI was fantastic.
I think the production quality as well was top notch. All of that was great. In fact, I love that opening sequence as well, which we'll get into that during our spoiler section, which we need to get into in just a moment here. Dave, let's end this segment with our final thoughts. Do you want to start?
You go first.
Okay.
You go first, because I'm still trying to actually figure out what proper grade I need to give.
Okay. You know what, Dave? Can you bring up the RMD scoring so that we can introduce that idea? Because our scoring system is set up more like Metacritic than it is. It's very different from Rotten Tomato, correct?
Yes. And I'm trying to bring it up right now. Hold up here.
All right, hold on. I was just looking at it last night, and now I don't have it. I think I just need to make a hard copy, so it's always on the computer.
In the studio.
Yeah, hold on.
1 sec.
So the Rain Man Digital Review score system is our own. It's our own scoring system that we have set up, because a lot of times we realize that as critics, the network as a whole, not just you and I, David, but as a network, many of our hosts view things very differently than some of the mainstream critics who just either A, don't know what they're talking about, they don't understand film and television, or they just hate on everything because they want everything to be this stellar art piece. So we put together our own system that now governs our reviews across the board, whether it be movie reviews, comic books, TV shows. So, Dave, before we get into the actual score, my final thoughts. Taking away my Star Wars expectations and only looking at this from a critical standpoint for the time being, The Mandalorian is not world-changing. and I wrote this on my Facebook page earlier today. The Mandalorian is not world-changing, nor is it even groundbreaking. Fun and exciting, absolutely. But ultimately, it feels like it's late to the game in an era of beautifully produced original content, and comparatively, it doesn't really stand out. It doesn't. If you would take Star Wars out of the name for a second, and you were to set this side by side, let's say one of HBO's productions, or Cinemax. Cinemax has amazing shows right now, or Stars, or Epix, Hulu, Amazon, and you put this side by side, I feel like this episode does not stand out. And I think that's a shame, because this is Star Wars. This is Disney's first piece of original content to be seen by millions and millions of people. And I think that's the only thing that kind of bums me out is, yeah, there are a lot of maybe people could say unfair expectations, perhaps, Dave. Maybe people can say, well, that's unfair. You know, this is just a show. You're putting too much of your want on it. But I'm not putting my personal wants. I'm looking at the other pieces of original content that we're getting today.
And putting it and seeing if it lives up to the standard.
And it really doesn't. If you put this to anything Amazon has put out over the last year, or HBO over the last couple of years, it pales in comparison. It's not as good as that. It's not as refined. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you compare this to, like, the thing about The Mandalorian is you have to compare it in regards to what it does for Disney Plus. You have to put it up against like stuff like Man from High Castle and Amazon.
In this new era, that's what
House
you have
of
to.
Cards,
You
and
have
Netflix. You have to.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, Dave. As a Star Wars fan, I think it was awesome and a great start to something that I'm hoping we get more of. But critically, I'm probably going to give this, let's see, our rating system is as follows. 1 through 40%, get fisted, it sucks. Thumbs down. 41 to 70% is, it's a movie. Thumb sideways, it's just kind of, hey, it's not bad, it's not good, it's great. 71 to 90% is hell yeah. 91% to 100 is kick ass. It's the best. It's awesome. It's nearly perfect. I'm going to give this a 70%. Critically. Yeah. All right, Dave, your final thoughts.
Surprisingly, me and you are pretty much on the same boat as this. I mean, if we could, as a Star Wars fan, I would give this a kick-ass, hell yeah, horns all the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But that's me as a Star Wars fan. Critically, I cannot put this up to, say, Breaking Bad. The first episode of Breaking Bad. First episode of Game of Thrones.
Or the first episode of House of Cards.
Or
the first episode of The Boys.
And I can't say that it's better or just as good as any of those. And I feel that it is that runtime that really does hurt it.
Yeah.
That 36 minutes just brings it down.
They could have added, let's say they added just 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
They could have slowed things down in between certain areas and given us a little bit more oomph to some of those scenes.
And then, although that would have actually put it into the kick-ass territory. And I was really surprised with, at the end of the day, when I looked at my score and I graded it, because everyone knows in the network that I normally go, it's going to be 100. And knowing with like a Mandalorian, people were probably thinking that I would automatically give it 100. And as I said, as a Star Wars fan, I give it kick-ass, hell yeah. But as a critic, I gave it a 75. It's a 75.
Yeah.
And if they gave it at least 30 more minutes and actually gave it a true time length of an episode, I'd expect out of a major series that's supposed to carry your streaming service.
Yeah. This was 6 minutes longer than an episode of Rebels.
Yeah.
Well, Rebels has some commercials, so let's say 10 minutes longer.
That and still that just it.
In fact, season premieres of Rebels is longer than this.
It unfortunately, when you do stuff like that, it leads to lazy script writing. It really does, because you have to rely on basically bad tropes and everything else. And that's what I saw sometimes with those moments when it should have been like, oh, this is cool. It's like a Western. They're showing it everywhere. Instead, I'm looking at like one of the second scenes going, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You could have fleshed that out a little bit more. So, but yeah, I would give this a hell yeah, but it's not, it's sad that for me, critically, it's not in the kick-ass territory, which it needed to be. For me, my expectation was kick-ass territory.
Well, even critically, taking the Star Wars fan out of it for a second, critically, I just expected Disney
to smash it out of the
to
park.
be like, this is go time.
Yeah.
We need to knock this bitch out the park.
It reminds me, and unfortunately, this type of mentality that Disney had with doing this, it reminds me of how they approach all of their franchises. Like, say, for example, let's do a Star Wars theme park, but let's do it half-ass and only do one ride release and just wait another year to release another ride. That's stupid planning. That's not giving the audience their full money's worth. And in television, you got to give your money's worth to the audience, or else your audience will just walk away saying, okay, that was cool. See you later. And, by episode 3, your audience numbers are going to dip.
Yeah, the critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes for this is 90%. I don't understand.
I don't think it deserves a 90.
Yeah, well,
I think that
their 90 is very different than ours.
I honestly
system is
feel,
weird.
Yeah, I honestly feel that their 90 is because fans are so passionate about this series and they love this series. And I'm the same way. I love this series. I hope it does really well.
Yeah, no, I don't hate it, and I have a lot of high hopes for it. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of great things, but as an episode of television, it needs some work.
It needs work. It needs a lot of work.
Yeah, it's 65% on Metacritic, which is more on par with us.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is a little skewed sometimes. So as of right now, Metacritic is giving it a 65. And, I mean, comparatively, here, give me a second. You talk for a second so I can pull a couple things up here.
And I think that
comparatively, you have Watchmen, a brand new TV show on HBO, sitting at 85.
Yeah. And okay, take that for example, right? HBO, when HBO came out, they released Watchmen, and their first episode was fantastic. Was just smash mouth. They said, okay, we're going to do something completely off the wall, give something the audience can chew on, and have them wanting to come back more. During when Watchmen's first episode came out, I saw so many posts and questions. Oh my God, what does this mean? What does this mean? What's going on here? I need to watch more Watchmen. That's what you need to do for a television. But when you get to Mandalorian, everyone is writing. It's very similar. What I see the audience, especially for Star Wars, reacting to it, I see it very similar to when Phantom Menace came out. You mentioned this off the air, and I think that's a perfect analogy for it.
Okay, so comparatively, Netflix, season 1 and season 2 for House of Cards, their Metacritic score is 76 and 80. So Metacritic is a little more accurate than Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic is sitting at 65% for The Mandalorian. So it seems like our thoughts are on par with many of the non-skewed critics. Because Rotten Tomatoes is just, it's so fucking skewed these days.
And again, fans of Star Wars out there need to understand, we're not bashing Mandalorian. We're not. It's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. It should not be held into regard in, say, like the rankings of a Breaking Bad or a.
So this guy gave it. Okay, so this guy gave it a 90%. But this is what he says. It's like he just wants to like it. So though its character building leaves something to be desired. So he feels like there's a disconnect there. Just like we've been saying with the human element, right?
Yes.
It needs more character development. Chapter 1 is a visual feast with enough sense of adventure to inspire hope that the Force may be strong with the Mandalorian.
And yeah.
I mean, that's a
agree with
positive
that.
review.
It's
but,
a positive
But
review.
you basically said the script isn't good. I mean,
And
that's not a 90% review. If I were to take his word, I'm going to review his review. If I were to review or break down his thoughts, I'm like, okay, well, it sounds like you have issues with the writing, but you love the setup. That's like maybe a 70%,
that's maybe a 70%.
maybe a 75%.
And that's why I think fans have to temper their expectations.
Yes, and that's the point of this review. Don't go in thinking it's going to be ground shaking. We're not going to all come and our knees are going to be weak.
You're going to be
Wait.
if you
Wait.
go into that, you will be disappointed. I'm sorry. It's I see like a lot of Star Wars fans acting like they did back when Phantom Menace came out, where it's like, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then give it about 6 months, and all of a sudden, if it doesn't turn out as much as you like, you're going to look at this and say, well, this kind of sucks. But then like 10 years later, you go, it was okay. Don't do that. Just basically temper your expectations. It's only one episode. And right now, it was a good start. But now we're expecting more out of it come episode 2 or chapter 2 and chapter 3.
The big movie sites are tearing this up. Now I'm talking. Now fan sites are loving it.
Fan sites are loving it.
Geek sites are loving it because they can't see past their own fan stuff. Mm-hmm. Critical sites are ripping this to shreds.
It's very much like, like I warned fans that basically say, you know what? I love this thing. I love such and such, and it's the greatest thing and everything else. I tell them, have you seen it?
You
lately?
tell them?
Or I've explained to them, have you watched such and such lately? Like me and you talked about it off the air. Willow.
All right. Don't you ever bash Willow. I will destroy you. Okay, we got to wrap this part of the show.
Yes.
We got to wrap.
Yes.
We'll be right back with the spoiler section. Don't go anywhere. Back, everybody. Star Wars from the Bacta tank. Let's get into some spoilers. Yeah. All right. So it looks like we're going to be learning about Yoda.
Yep.
In some way, because that hook was,
Dear Lord.
I mean, that saved the episode for me. The way the episode ended, I'm like, holy shit. Suddenly, all the expense and the army protecting this bounty, and the fact that the Empire or some faction of is after it suddenly makes sense. But, okay, so we're going to learn. Apparently, let me set it up. Jesus, obviously you can tell I'm very excited. I forgot how to do a show. So Yoda, we've never learned about Yoda, ever.
No.
We know nothing of him.
Yeah.
Other than some backstories here and there. But we don't know anything about who he is who he was when he was younger, his species. We just know that he's very, 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 very old.
Yes.
Okay, that's all we know. Well, at the end of this episode, the bounty was a baby. And inside of this crib was a little baby that looked just like Yoda. So it looks like we're going there, that we're finally going to explore this species a bit. But Dave, is this something, as Star Wars fans, do we want this?
Oh man, this is so.
And be
so-
honest, Dave, because you know my feelings on it. I feel like some secrets, some mysteries should not be revealed. And one of the greatest mysteries of Star Wars has always been we don't know anything about Yoda.
mystery. I mean,
we
if
don't
you-
know his species, and maybe someday we can explore it. But is that time now?
especially when you take into regard how he was created. I mean, George Lucas's words, and I have it here pulled up. So, and this is what he says about Yoda. So he's a mystery character. He's a magical character. He has no background. He comes and he goes. He's the subversive, secret, mysterious stranger
I
that
love it.
enters the film just to then exit at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's what George Lucas explained the creation of Yoda. That's his whole basis. He is the mystery character. He's the man with no name. And I see your point. I see your point as a fan on the side that say, let's not know. I don't want to know. Keep a mystery. That's one of the charm of it all. That's the charm of that character. However, I also understand the need as a fan to know everything about the universe.
Okay.
So
But you're not answering the question. Is this something you want?
I'm going to say, yeah, this is something I
Okay.
want.
I'm
Because-
okay with it, Dave, but I don't know if I'm ready for it. And if they're doing this, I'm on board. I'm on board this show. But now that you have me, because that hook was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm here now, and I'm very involved. Okay? But now you better fucking deliver.
Oh, yes. Especially with this.
You just went down the route of no return. There is no turning point. You did it. Now take us there. And it better be fucking excellent.
It better be awesome.
Because if you fuck anything up pertaining to Yoda's
Lineage?
his lineage, where he came from, anything about him, you better do it right, because you don't want to be the TV show that completely destroys one of the greatest characters of all time in television, in literature.
Yeah. Essentially what they're doing is what everyone's afraid of when they first talked about the prequels, delving into the background of Darth Vader.
That's fair. I would agree.
In this regard, we're delving into the background of Yoda. And
Well, we are assuming that. We are assuming that we're delving into the background of Yoda. We are. But how else can you... What other story are you going to tell? Yes, we're not going to find out about Yoda per se. At least
No.
we don't know that yet.
But his species.
But his species, which if you learn about a species, you're going to learn about Yoda.
And that's the thing. We need if we learn anything about this baby character, and from the sound of it too, especially since like I looked up on the Wikipedia, they updated Yoda's bio.
His bio.
Yeah, his bio. And they basically updated the biology of Yoda, and they added the picture of the baby in the Mandalorian. And they basically said that the species' life expectancy spans several centuries, and they age very slowly, remaining in infancy form for at least 50 standard years. Their brains also possessed a subbrain that activates when having visions.
Wait, this is all newly updated?
Yeah, this is newly updated.
So Dave, these are real spoilers to me too. We didn't learn any of this.
Yeah, we didn't learn any of this. This is actually stuff I just looked up today, and it was on the updated on the Wikipedia. And okay, if we're gonna say that they stay in infancy of 50 years, that means that this baby, who at the very end, IG-11 makes, hey, it's 50 years old. This is blah blah blah. This some creatures age differently than other humans, and he made the statement that the creature is 50 years old. This creature is going to grow into a fully grown, mature creature
Yeah.
really fast. So it's
Okay.
an important character.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest spoilers of the show. What else do we have in there? The Bescat. How important is that to
Dude, I was
Mandalorian culture?
I was so happy that they brought this up just as a Mando fan, because
What's a Mando flare?
the Beskar steel is actually really important to Mandalorians, especially when you take it into context that the last time we saw Beskar steel come into a storyline was Star Wars Rebels, when they introduced the weakness to the Beskar steel was the arc pulse generator created by Sabine Wren. And the Mandalorians had to get rid of the Beskar steel because the Empire used the arc pulse generator to wipe them out. And that's why
it's important.
It's important.
Okay.
Because like this is an important relic to all the Mandalorians that they had to give up.
And that's why the client said it's only fitting that this goes back into the possession of a Mandalorian.
A Mandalorian.
Okay.
And that's why I got reminded from the Rebels season when they focused on the Mandalorian culture and how that entire culture, those houses were devastated that they had to give up their armor and the Beskar steel to the Imperials, because if they didn't, all the Imperials would do would just superheat them with the arc pulse generator and kill all of them.
All
Just
right. So,
vaporize
Dave,
them.
anything else that is relevant, you think, to talk about for the spoilers? So we ended up covering a lot in the regular show.
Spoiler wise, I mean, the Mandalorian stuff was fantastic.
The Foundling, is that anything we need to talk about? Was that ever?
There
that
was never any mention of foundlings.
Okay, and we're assuming they're what they call they're young.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a Mandalorian culture thing. They're really trying to rewrite Mandalorian culture, because you got to remember,
You mean rewrite it from the old retcon?
From the old retcon,
right? Yeah.
Because there's so much in the EU. Oh yeah, there was a huge history, and everything about the Mandalorians was already
changed
written.
a lot. Yeah.
They gave all that stuff up, and now they're trying to pull it back in and basically say, okay, let's try to revamp it, refresh it.
Well, luckily Filoni's involved, and Filoni did wonders in Clone Wars with it. I know there's some fans that are kind of not sure about it still. Like, well, I don't really know. I don't really like what he did. It was awesome in the old expanded universe, and he kind of changed it. And I'm like, well, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
I'm okay with it. But all right, Dave. Well, I think this actually does conclude our discussion. Then, if we are done, there wasn't a whole lot of spoilery type things that would ruin the story, except for the green baby at the end. That was the biggest,
and just a lot of like the little, I think, nods to the past movies, like little tiny Easter eggs, like the use of the Gardenian in the very beginning, the noodle nose alien in the very beginning.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah,
some of the aliens that we got to see, I love that speeder scene that was just ripped from New Hope, when he's going across he's riding on the beat up speeder, and that beat up speeder is just going across the ice. It so reminded me of New Hope, watching Luke and Obi-Wan in their speeder scene going across the desert. It was a great callback to that, and I think that's ultimately a plus for Favreau and Filoni with this episode. Is like, they really wanted to show us that they're not forgetting Star Wars, what made Star Wars fun, not what its history or anything, but the feel of Star Wars, the soul.
Yeah,
me and you talk about how Star Wars has a soul, and I do think that this episode captured the soul of Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, Dave. Well, this does conclude our discussion on the very first episode of The Mandalorian. This is history. This is and was history in the making. We have now finally witnessed our very first episode of Star Wars, of a live-action Star Wars series, and I am excited and happy to see ultimately where all this goes, Dave. All right, so I want to thank everybody for listening. Please leave us reviews if you want to get more Star Wars from the Bacta Tank each and every single month. You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. Just search Star Wars from the Bacta Tank. Also Patreon. If you want 3 shows a month opposed to just our regular 2, You can get an additional bonus show every single month by subscribing to our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/RainManDigital. Thank you, David.
Thank you. May the force be with us.